After losing last night to the 0-4 Detroit Pistons and Tobias Harris, should we be worried about the 76ers? That right there at the Wells Fargo Center was an embarrassment from this basketball team. So we're going to talk about that, and let's let you talk about it down in the comments section right now. Share your thoughts with us. Are you worried about the 76ers? W for worried, N for not worried. Let us know. And with that, let's get it started. You can just see the frustration in my face. You can hear it in my voice. I can't believe Philadelphia lost that game last night. I get it. It's early in the NBA season. No Joel Embiid. No Paul George. You shouldn't lose to the Detroit Pistons 105-95. And at one point, midway through the fourth quarter, the Sixers were down big. And it's just unacceptable in all facets. I know that Embiid and George aren't playing. Philadelphia still has a lot of talent on this team, and so far they have one win to show for it. A good win against an Indiana Pacers team that beat the Boston Celtics last night, but you lose to the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons out-rebounded the Sixers by 12. They made 7 more threes, and Tyrese Maxey summarized it great after the game, and I appreciate him being honest and being the face of the organization while Embiid and George are out. And he kept it a buck. They out-toughed us. That's exactly what the Pistons did. So I appreciate the honesty, but at the same time, are you kidding me? Nick Nurse even said, going into that Pistons game, finally against Indiana, we found our identity. I'm not sure why it took 3 games, but that was our identity. But then they slipped back into what happened against Toronto on the road and Milwaukee at home. And the Sixers' 3 losses have come to teams with a combined 3-11 record. We want Joel Embiid to be healthy for the playoffs. We want Paul George to be healthy for the playoffs. Both of those superstar players have an injury history that is a little bit concerning. And I'm not going to overdo it with overreacting this early in the regular season. But at the same time, can you show up? Can you play hard? Can you make open shots? The Sixers are so out of sync, just a mess right now, and they should not be losing against teams with that combined win-loss record. 76ers are shooting 27.5% from 3. Worst mark in the NBA. So they're dead last in percentage and dead last in three-pointers made per game. They have the 4th worst plus-minus in the NBA at -7 and 7.3. And so the Sixers are going to get better with Embiid and George, but does this make you have concerns about the depth on this team? Maybe it's not as good as we anticipated. The Sixers' issues, 5 of them really. Maxey's the only creator. They're an awful three-point shooting team. The defensive rebounding is a glaring issue still. They can't really guard on the perimeter, and they've committed the 2nd most fouls in the entire NBA. So let's pose that question one more time. Is it time to panic about the Philadelphia 76ers? Listless losses against bad teams. Toronto Raptors on the road and the 0-4 Detroit Pistons and Tobias Harris at home. I worry that even though Joel Embiid and Paul George are going to come back and they account for 50-55 points of your scoring output, but is Tyrese Maxey the only creator on this team? Are the Sixers really going to struggle to knock down threes? They can't rebound the basketball still. Their defense has been putrid. And this is a team that we thought going into this year was going to have a lot of depth. Well, these depth pieces have an opportunity without Embiid and George in the lineup to step up, prove their worth. And they've fallen flat on their faces. It's so early during the midst of an 82-game schedule, but it's also a very loaded Eastern Conference, and I worry about the Sixers' lack of cohesion and lack of effort. It's flat out unacceptable and embarrassing. So, Chet, awful loss last night. I don't care which way you slice it up. It's the Detroit Pistons and Tobias Harris, who, of course, went over the 14.5, 15.5 points for his over-under. You knew it was going to happen.
It's just losses to teams like the Pistons, to teams like the Raptors. I get your two top players, 2 of your 3 top players are out. It just cannot happen, especially at home to Detroit, who hadn't won a game yet. And yes, it's early. And I know some people are going to say, why are we panicking? We're 4 games into the season. They're 1-3. They can turn it around still. And yes, they can still turn it around. But things could get ugly quick. You have a West Coast road trip coming up.
Yeah.
Playing the Suns, the Lakers, the Clippers. You got the Grizzlies on Saturday, who are a good team. Like, who knows at this point when Embiid and Paul George are going to come back. We're going to have a little bit from Shams coming up on when Embiid might be coming back. But until they do, and even when they come back, like, you're going to have games without them. Maxey talked about it. This team just has to win games when Embiid's not on the court. This can't be a situation like last year where he's out and you can't win a single game. And I liked a lot of the moves Daryl Morey made in the offseason. I'm not going to go back and say, I've seen some comments like, man, those moves were awful. Morey had an awful offseason. Like, before the season started, we were all praising him for how good the offseason was. And I still like the moves he made. And it's funny because I think some of the individual pieces he brought in, like, I like what Caleb Martin's done. I like what Gershon Yabusele has done. Andre Drummond has been very active on the offensive glass. But even though all these individual players, I like what they've done, it just hasn't come together on the floor as a whole. So they really need Paul George and Joel Embiid back. But it is a little concerning that we're 4 games into the year now, and they still can't shoot. They can't defend anything. You just hope that when the stars come back, this depth can play better. Because this was supposed to be one of the deepest teams they've had around Joel Embiid. And if it's not, and they have to just rely on those top 3 guys when they're healthy, this team might not be as good as maybe some of us were hoping coming into the season.
Sometimes it's about mojo, too. And when you get a PG and an Embiid back, that's the injection of mojo, confidence, and swagger that any team could get. If you're working at a company and some of your leaders are out, sometimes people are less motivated. The company doesn't function as well. And speaking about Joel Embiid coming back, we're going to talk about that on the other side. First, what say you? Are you worried about the Philadelphia 76ers? W for worried, N for not worried. Let us know. One of the concerns that I do have, it's the constant drama around this team. You never see this happening with the Golden State Warriors or the Boston Celtics, some of the best organizations in the sport, but there's always something happening with this basketball team. It's really been the case my entire life. So coming up next, is an Embiid return on the horizon? Him and Paul George partaking in 5-on-5. We'll see. We'll talk about it. First, be sure to sign up with DraftKings, the presenting sponsor for today's 76ers. Now, it's the best sports book in the game. Right now, when you bet $5, you get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Just use the code SixersChat, and here's some more information on how you can do that. The NBA is finally back. A new season means new ways to get into the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Who's draining threes from beyond the arc? Who's crashing the boards and grabbing rebounds? Get behind your favorite players and the prop bets that you can make on DraftKings, the home of NBA player props. First time, new DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Every point counts with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code SixersChat. That's code SixersChat for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/bball. And here are Chip's picks for a loaded slate of some NBA basketball. Memphis plus 6.5 against Milwaukee. Dallas giving 6.5 to the Rockets. San Antonio Spurs money line against Utah. And then Phoenix 4-point favorites against the Los Angeles Clippers. Promo code SixersChat. Sign up today. User experience is also fantastic. According to Shams Charania, Embiid could return as soon as this weekend. And I think the Sixers really, really need to see the return of number 21. The personality, the game, the dominance, the impact on both ends of the floor. I'm curious to see how he looks with that knee. Here's what Shams had to say, ESPN NBA insider. I'm told that he is essentially in the ramp-up phase of his return process, of his debut process. He's completed, from what I'm told, multiple 5-on-5 scrimmages in recent days. And so the 76ers want to make sure from a conditioning perspective, his knee, his body, 100% before he makes it back on the floor for his debut. He has workouts scheduled today and on Friday to evaluate whether he's going to be able to make a return as soon as this weekend. But this is all a part of what he's been described to me as the new normal for Joel Embiid. That's going to include periodic time off at different points during the season. It's going to include routine checkups on his knee over the course of the year, and it's all part of the 76ers and Joel Embiid's new strategy this season on how to keep him healthy when he has never been, and that's for the NBA playoffs. This might frustrate some people. They're paying him a max, Chase. He should go out there and he should play. That's his job. Well, he's tried to do that, and he's tried to gut it out, and he's always injured in the NBA playoffs. It's part of the reason why Philadelphia's failed to make it past the second round during this era of Embiid basketball, and they haven't made it past the second round since before Joel Embiid. It's been since 2001. And so when the Sixers are paying this much money to him, they just gave him another max. He's been injured during critical moments of the season. They're left with this type of plan. We have to try something different because nothing that we've done in seasons prior has worked. Now, there's more urgency now to get Joel Embiid back because the Sixers are off to a slow start. The NBA investigation was a little bit weird. Nick Nurse seems to be peeved by all of the questions that he's getting. Howard Eskin is saying, do you think that people who spend money on these tickets, what do you think about them? They're buying these tickets and Joel Embiid isn't even playing, blah, 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 blah. The Sixers are feeling the heat both on the floor and off the floor. As for Paul George, hyperextended knee, he's also set to be reevaluated on Friday. You know what would be kind of lit? If Embiid and Paul George return for the same game. And if that happens, then hopefully we'll see what this Sixers team is potentially about and what they're capable of. Upcoming schedule for Philadelphia. Chip mentioned earlier that West Coast roadie coming up. They'll take on the Grizzlies on Saturday at home, and then they're on the road against Phoenix on Monday, on the road against the Clippers on Wednesday, on the road against the Lakers on Friday, and then back home on Sunday against the Charlotte Hornets. So this is a pretty tough go here. Phoenix is a solid squad. Memphis, very talented. Clippers should be able to beat them, but it's on the West Coast. I like what J.J. Redick has done with the Lakers, some innovation on the offensive side of the floor and some adjustments made there. You should be able to beat Charlotte, but you should be able to beat Detroit as well, even without Embiid and George, and the Sixers weren't able to do that, Chip.
Yeah, and it's good to at least hear that he's ramping up and getting in those 5-on-5s. I just think that, of course they want to manage him, right? Keep him healthy for the postseason. He's never been healthy for a playoff run. And I'm all for keeping him healthy and saving him for when we need him most. But at some point, I've said this multiple times, you don't want to be in the same position as you were last season where you're a play-in team. And then you're a 7-8 seed, have to win a play-in game or two to get into the playoffs, and then all of a sudden, you're in a first-round matchup with the Boston Celtics or the New York Knicks. I still want this team to have regular season success and have home court advantage in the first round, in the second round of the playoffs. I don't want to have to fight through the regular season and scratch and claw to get these wins. Now, hopefully, once Paul George comes back, he's back for good. And, he's not going to be missing games here and there, you think, like Joel Embiid, the plan is. But I do think now that they're 1-3 and they're struggling to beat even bad teams, the depth hasn't been as good as you want it to be. Nick Nurse is clearly frustrated with the lack of availability from Embiid and from Paul George. They might try now to have a little more urgency and not rush back, but say, Embiid, we got to get you out there. I know there's a certain, weight they want to get him down to and the conditioning and all of that, but this team can't start the season 1-7 or 2-8 and then put yourself in a big hole where now you have to win games, had them out there at every point in the season. I think ideally it was like, oh, we can have Embiid miss some games here and there. This team can still win games. That's why we brought in Paul George, but now he's hurt. So it kind of, ruined their plans early on. And now your back might be against the wall here in a couple weeks if they're missing the next week or so, and all of a sudden you're dropping games and falling down in the Eastern Conference standings.
Yeah, I mean, think about the East, right? Speaking of the standings, you get that 3-6 matchup, you get the 2-7, you're playing against a really difficult squad, and you don't have home court advantage. And we know that the Sixers already have their pitfalls and lack of confidence in the NBA playoffs already. How confident are you in the Sixers to turn it around? We'll leave you with that. You can give us some optimism down in the comments section, 1 to 10. Thanks so much for watching. Have a fantastic weekend. Don't forget to subscribe and keep it locked here.